Some questions arrive quietly. What am I supposed to do with my life? Why do I feel responsible for something I cannot yet name? Why does ordinary success feel too small, while every larger possibility feels impossible? For some people, these questions are occasional visitors. For others, they become an atmosphere. A conversation about work becomes a question about destiny. A talent becomes evidence. A disappointment becomes a test. A season of loneliness begins to look like separation for a future task. The language of calling can give shape to this experience. It can tell a person that life is more than appetite, status, and survival. It can connect ability with responsibility and private desire with the needs of other people. But calling can also become heavy. If your life must fulfill a singular purpose, every choice may feel irreversible. Rest may look like disobedience. An ordinary job may look like failure. A closed opportunity may seem like evidence that you misunderstood everything. And if you have built an identity around being set apart, belonging can begin to feel like betrayal. This film will not tell you that you are a chosen one. It will not interpret rejection, dreams, coincidences, suffering, or isolation as proof that a hidden destiny is approaching. It will not promise recognition, influence, protection, or reward. It will take the desire for purpose seriously enough not to flatter it. Because the important question may not be whether a calling makes you feel exceptional. The important question may be what it asks you to become responsible for. Consider a fictional composite assembled from ordinary experiences, not a real person's biography. Nadia is 31. She works in a regional office processing service requests. She is competent, liked, and increasingly ashamed of how little that seems to mean to her. There is nothing obviously wrong with the job. It pays the rent. Her manager is fair. The work helps people in small, measurable ways, yet Nadia carries the feeling that she is meant to do something else. At first, the feeling is useful. She begins reading again. She volunteers twice a month with a literacy program. She notices that she can explain difficult material without making people feel small. The work gives her energy. Then the feeling changes. She begins watching interviews with people who describe finding their purpose. Their stories have a clean shape: confusion, discovery, courage, impact. The years before recognition are edited into a short introduction. The setbacks become foreshadowing. Nadia starts editing her own life in advance. An argument with a colleague becomes evidence that she no longer belongs in ordinary systems. A friend who questions her plan becomes someone who cannot understand her vision. A dream about speaking before a crowd becomes difficult to hold as only a dream. One evening, she writes a sentence on a piece of paper. "Do not waste your life." She folds it and places it beside the lamp. The sentence is not false, but it contains no definition of waste. Does waste mean staying too long in safe work? Does it mean abandoning obligations for an untested idea? Does it mean having talent and never becoming visible? Does it mean becoming visible while neglecting the people already within reach? The sentence increases urgency without increasing clarity. The feeling of being set apart can contain several experiences at once. It may contain moral sensitivity, noticing suffering that others overlook. It may contain ability, recognizing that certain work fits unusually well. It may contain alienation, the pain of not feeling at home in one's environment. It may contain ambition, spiritual desire, grief, boredom, imagination, or the wish for a coherent identity. These experiences are not interchangeable, and the presence of one does not prove the meaning of another. Feeling different is real as an experience. Its interpretation remains a question. This distinction matters because a powerful interpretation can begin reorganizing a life before it has been tested. If loneliness becomes proof of being chosen, reconnection may look like moving backward. If resistance becomes proof of importance, criticism may become impossible to hear. If intensity becomes authority, the strongest feeling wins every argument. There is no shame in wanting your life to matter. The desire becomes dangerous only when meaning requires superiority, immunity from correction, or a future dramatic enough to redeem the present. Perhaps the first question is not, "What is my great calling?" Perhaps it is smaller. What kind of need repeatedly becomes visible to me? What responsibility do I move toward even when no one is watching? What work becomes more truthful when I do it? Who benefits if I become better at it? Nadia does not resign the next morning. She also does not dismiss the feeling. She changes the sentence on the folded note. "Do not waste your life" becomes, "Pay attention to what you are willing to serve." It is less dramatic. It is also harder to use as a mirror. The word calling carries religious history, but contemporary research also uses it in vocational psychology and organizational studies. There is no single definition accepted across every field. Some accounts emphasize an external summons, others emphasize meaningful work, a sense of purpose, or contribution beyond the self. Some treat calling as something discovered, others allow it to develop through experience, opportunity, reflection, and relationship. That diversity is important. Science can study what people mean when they report a calling, how that belief relates to work and well-being, and what conditions help or harm its expression. It cannot place a microphone outside the universe and verify who has been commissioned by God. The research question is not, is this person's calling divinely authentic? It is closer to, what happens when people organize identity and action around the belief that certain work is deeply meaningful and directed toward a larger purpose? One influential model distinguishes perceiving a calling from living a calling. A person may feel drawn toward work they cannot access because of money, caregiving, discrimination, health, geography, education, or opportunity. Another person may perform meaningful work without describing it as a call. This protects against a common moral error. If calling and enactment are identical, anyone unable to pursue ideal work appears uncommitted. Structural barriers disappear from view. Necessity is misread as fear. Privilege is rewritten as courage, but a sense of purpose does not create childcare, credentials, legal status, health, transportation, or a living wage. Calling may influence choice. It does not abolish conditions. There is also a difference between searching for a calling and experiencing one as present. Search can be alive with curiosity. It can lead a person to experiment, learn, ask better questions, and encounter work they had not imagined. Search can also become surveillance. Every conversation is inspected for signs. Every interest is asked to carry the weight of a life plan. Every week without revelation becomes evidence of falling behind. Research using profiles of calling suggests that search and presence combine in different ways and are associated differently with work meaning and satisfaction. The details belong to particular samples, but the larger caution is useful. Searching and possessing are not one psychological state. A person who is searching is not a failed version of someone who has found. A person who feels certain is not necessarily correct. Certainty is an experience. Accuracy requires more. Across a broad research literature, calling is often associated with desirable outcomes such as meaning, occupational identification, satisfaction, or commitment. A later meta-analysis examined the relationship between calling and features of what researchers called the good life. The pattern was generally positive, but the literature also contained complications about access, identity, sacrifice, and the form that calling takes. This is where popular storytelling often becomes too clean. It moves from purpose to persistence, then from persistence to success. But each arrow hides conditions. Purpose can support persistence. Persistence can build skill. Skill can improve some possibilities. Yet markets change. Institutions exclude. Bodies become tired. Responsibilities conflict. A worthy project can fail. A harmful project can succeed. Meaning is not a mechanism that forces reality to reward devotion. Studies of self-transcendent purpose in education offer one bounded example. Researchers examined whether connecting learning to aims beyond the self could support academic self-regulation. In those contexts, pro-social purpose was linked with greater persistence on work that was difficult or uninteresting. The finding does not mean that personal benefit is corrupt, that every student responds alike, or that noble language can compensate for unsafe or unjust conditions. It offers a narrower insight. When a task is not immediately rewarding, knowing who or what the effort may serve can change the reason to continue. Purpose is also different from a goal. A goal can be completed. Earn the qualification, publish the book, open the clinic, finish the program, reach the number. Purpose is an organizing direction. It may generate many goals, and some of those goals may fail without exhausting the purpose. Confusing the two can make one outcome carry too much meaning. If the grant is the purpose, rejection destroys the story. If the purpose is to make a kind of care more available, the grant may be one important path among several. Losing it still hurts. Resources are real. Time is real. A second path may be smaller or unavailable, but the loss of one instrument does not automatically prove that the underlying concern was false. The reverse error is also possible. A person can use abstract purpose to avoid measurable goals. They are called to teach, but never prepare a lesson. Called to create, but never complete a draft. Called to serve, but never ask whether anyone is helped. Purpose without goals can remain flattering because it is never tested by contact with reality. Goals without purpose can become empty because completion answers what but not why. A livable calling needs both direction and form. It needs a reason larger than the next achievement and a next action small enough to be evaluated. Purpose answers a human question that pleasure cannot always answer. Why continue when this is boring? Why practice when no one applauds? Why tell the truth when deception would be easier? Why build something whose benefit may arrive after you leave? But purpose must also answer another question. What gives you permission to stop? If the answer is nothing, calling has begun to resemble captivity. The same idea that helps a person endure can make them available for exploitation. The same identity that organizes a life can make change feel like death. To understand the weight of a calling, we have to look not only at what meaning gives, we have to look at what meaning can be persuaded to take. Some of the most revealing research on calling has studied people whose work is difficult to explain through salary or status alone. In a foundational study, researchers examined zookeepers who described their work as deeply meaningful. The work could be physically demanding, repetitive, uncomfortable, and modestly paid. Yet many participants understood it as part of who they were and as a duty toward animals and conservation. That orientation brought significance. It also brought sacrifice. When work is experienced as a moral duty, leaving on time can feel different. Refusing an extra task may not feel like a scheduling decision. It may feel like abandoning a living creature or betraying the kind of person one claims to be. The study does not tell us that zookeepers are naive or that sacrifice is always exploitation. It shows why deeply meaningful work can create a relationship to duty that ordinary job descriptions do not capture. The animal still needs care when the budget is inadequate. The mission remains important when the worker is tired. The organization can benefit from both truths. Later reviews of meaningful work describe this double edge. Meaning can support well-being, identity, motivation, and contribution. Under other conditions, it can weaken boundaries, justify poor work arrangements, or make exploitation appear virtuous. Workers' calling theory explicitly includes both positive possibilities and potential negative outcomes, such as burnout, workaholism, and exploitation. The theory does not say these outcomes are inevitable. It asks which personal and contextual conditions shape the path from perceiving a call to living it. The evidence is not a single verdict. One study of counselors, for example, found pathways in which living a calling was associated with lower burnout. Other research has examined circumstances in which calling may contribute to workaholism or organizational exploitation. Mixed findings should not be treated as failure. They may indicate that calling is not one ingredient with one effect. A meaningful role practiced with agency, support, boundaries, fair conditions, and actual access is different from a sacred identity enacted under coercion, scarcity, or impossible expectations. The question is not simply whether calling is good or bad. The question is what the calling is attached to, what it demands, who interprets it, and who pays its costs. Pressure enters calling in several disguises. One is moral perfectionism. If the work is sacred, mistakes can become more than mistakes. They can feel like evidence of personal unworthiness. A missed deadline becomes betrayal. Fatigue becomes weakness of character. Uncertainty becomes lack of faith. Another is identity capture. When one role contains nearly all meaning, criticism of the work can feel like criticism of the self. Changing direction can feel like self-erasure. A musician who cannot perform, a caregiver whose role ends, a leader who loses a position, or a founder whose project closes may face more than disappointment. The structure holding identity together may have been removed. Identity capture also changes relationships. Friends become audiences, obstacles, or support staff for the mission. A partner's need for shared time appears less important than work described as world-changing. Children learn that interruption is welcome only when it serves the story. Colleagues discover that disagreement will be judged not only as a practical difference, but as resistance to purpose. The person carrying the calling may feel equally trapped. If everyone knows them as the strong one, weakness threatens the community's image of them. If they are the visionary, uncertainty may feel unavailable. If they are the healer, needing care may produce shame. If they are the one who never quits, changing course may appear morally impossible. The role begins asking for continuous performance. This is why community is not merely encouragement. A healthy community protects the right to be more than the role. It can say, your contribution matters, and you remain a person when you cannot contribute in the same way. It can distinguish accountability from demand. It can help mourn a role that has ended without rushing to announce the next one. It can refuse to make one person's exhaustion the price of everyone else's inspiration. Another is deferred life. Relationships, health, sleep, financial stability, and ordinary joy are postponed until the mission reaches a future stage. But a calling with no definition of enough can consume every stage it promised to justify. And another is exceptional pressure. If you believe you were set apart for unusual impact, ordinary progress can become humiliating. You may ignore the local task because it does not resemble the imagined future. Or you may force every local task to become evidence that the future is beginning. A calling that cannot tolerate limits will eventually call harm obedience. This does not mean meaningful work should never require sacrifice. Parenting, medicine, art, justice work, scholarship, ministry, emergency response and care all contain seasons when love costs something. The distinction is not cost versus comfort. It is whether the cost remains accountable. Can it be named? Can it be shared? Can someone question it without being accused of disloyalty? Does the person retain the right to safety, treatment, rest, compensation, and truthful information? Does sacrifice actually serve the stated good, or merely protect an institution, leader, or identity from change? At the end of a shift, a clean enclosure may look ordinary. It may also be the exact place where purpose became real. The challenge is to honor the work without making the worker disposable. Calling cannot be measured only by willingness to give more. Sometimes it must be measured by the courage to protect what the calling was never authorized to destroy. Within Jewish and Christian traditions, the story of Moses has become one of the most influential narratives of calling. Exodus 3 and 4 present a commissioning scene. Moses encounters God, receives a task connected to the suffering of Israel, and responds through an extended dialogue. The text belongs to scripture and theological tradition. It should not be used as a template proving that a modern viewer has received an equivalent commission. Nor will this film settle historical questions about Exodus or differences among Jewish and Christian interpretation. Our focus is literary and ethical. What kind of calling does the narrative portray? The scene begins away from power. Moses is tending the flock of his father-in-law. The work is not presented as a leadership audition. There is no crowd. No one is recording the moment that will later become famous. The strange sight is a bush that burns without being consumed. Moses turns aside. The narrative then turns attention away from spectacle and toward suffering. The commission is connected to a people's affliction, their cry, and a movement toward liberation. This is the first corrective to fantasies of calling. The center is not Moses's exceptional feeling. The center is a need beyond Moses. Then Moses objects. "Who am I to go? What shall I say when they ask who sent me? What if they do not believe me? I am not eloquent." Finally, the resistance becomes direct. Send someone else. The call narrative is not the portrait of a person whose confidence confirms destiny. It is a conversation containing attention, commission, questions, signs, fear, limitation, anger, and accommodation. Modern retellings often compress reluctance into a motivational device. You feel inadequate because the calling is large. Your fear proves the assignment matters. The story will reveal that you had everything inside you all along. But the text is more complicated. Moses does not simply discover private confidence. The narrative gives promises, signs, a name, a staff, and eventually another person. Aaron will speak. The mission is not made credible by Moses learning to admire himself. Capacity is distributed. Speech is shared. The staff remains a staff until it is used within the task. Calling does not eliminate dependence. Scholars describe Exodus 3:4 as a call or commissioning narrative and examine the role of body, speech, signs, hand, mouth, and mediation. Interpretations differ over Moses' description of his speech and over how the narrative's layers developed. That disagreement matters because the passage should not be turned casually into a diagnosis or inspirational biography. The text does not authorize us to tell every hesitant person that God will override their no. It does not mean disability exists merely to display divine power. It does not mean leaders may claim sacred authority while refusing accountability. What it does show within the story is that commission and limitation remain in the same scene. Moses is not presented as limitless before he can become responsible. There is a difference between humility and the performance of inadequacy. Humility receives accurate information about ability and need. It accepts help. It asks what the task requires. It remains answerable to the people affected. The performance of inadequacy can keep the self at the center just as effectively as grandiosity. I am too small. I am too broken. I am too unprepared. Each sentence may contain truth. Each can also become a room in which no one else's need is visible. The Moses narrative does not end at the burning bush with a perfected self-concept. It moves toward people. That movement gives us a test. Does the language of calling enlarge attention to suffering and responsibility, or does it enlarge attention to the identity of the person who feels called? The bush is not a stage light. It interrupts a worker and redirects him toward a burden he did not invent. The fire is memorable, but the calling will be lived through conversations, conflict, shared leadership, repeated failure, administration, travel, and the care of a difficult community. The extraordinary scene does not remove the ordinary weight. It begins it. Most people do not consciously decide to build a spiritual identity around being special. The movement can be subtle. A person feels unseen. The idea of a hidden calling gives the unseen years a plot. A person has been rejected. The idea of being set apart protects dignity. A person senses genuine ability. The idea of destiny explains why ordinary structures feel too small. These interpretations can reduce pain. They can also become difficult to question because questioning them appears to return the person to meaninglessness. The issue is not ego in the simple sense of vanity. The issue is what identity must believe in order to remain intact. If I am not destined for unusual impact, have I wasted my struggle? If this project is not my calling, who am I after the project ends? If other people can do what I do, does my contribution still matter? If no one recognizes the gift, is the gift real? Research on self-transcendent purpose offers a useful distinction, provided we keep it within bounds. In educational studies, a purpose-connected personal learning to contribution beyond the self. That orientation supported persistence in certain academic contexts. Self-transcendence does not require self-hatred. A person can value livelihood, mastery, joy, recognition and personal growth, while also caring about who benefits. The distinction is not self versus others as enemies. It is whether the purpose ends at the self. Calling language becomes fragile when the final beneficiary is an idealized identity. I will serve so that I can know I am chosen. I will create so that the world must confirm my uniqueness. I will sacrifice so that no one can question my devotion. The outward action may look generous, while the identity remains trapped in a negotiation for significance. This is an editorial inference, not a clinical diagnosis. Human motives are mixed. Service can contain ambition. Art can contain the desire to be seen. Leadership can contain both care and control. The goal is not pure motive. It is motive that can be examined. Return to Nadia. Months have passed. She has continued volunteering at the literacy program. She also enrolled in a part-time course on adult education. One evening, the program coordinator asks whether she would help rewrite a confusing orientation guide. Nadia feels disappointed. The guide is 12 pages of inconsistent instructions. No one will know who repaired it. The work does not resemble speaking before a crowd. It does not confirm the scale of the future she imagined. She almost says no. Then she asks, who uses the guide? New volunteers, the coordinator says. Several leave because the first month feels chaotic. Learners then lose tutors and have to begin again with someone else. The task changes shape. It is still a document. But now the document sits inside a chain of trust. Nadia accepts. She interviews 3 volunteers. She watches where they become confused. She rewrites the guide, tests it with the next group, and changes it again. No hidden audience appears, no one calls the work her destiny, but fewer volunteers leave during the next cycle. This fictional scene does not prove Nadia has found her calling. It illustrates a shift from asking whether the task expresses a special identity to asking whether the task serves a real need. Who benefits? The question is not perfect. Harmful movements can claim beneficiaries. Leaders can define service in ways that silence the people supposedly served. So the question needs companions. Who gets to describe the need? Can the people affected disagree? Is the work making them more dependent on the called person or more capable without them? Can credit be shared? Can the method change when evidence changes? Can the calling survive the sentence, "I was wrong"? Exceptional identity prefers the spotlight because the spotlight clarifies who matters. Service is often harder to photograph. It distributes agency. It leaves room for another person's knowledge. It may solve a problem without making the solver central to the story. There is one more danger. Fear of ego can become its own paralysis. A person may refuse leadership because they cannot guarantee perfect motives. They may hide ability to avoid appearing ambitious. They may call every desire for recognition corrupt, then secretly become resentful when no recognition arrives. Humility is not the denial of capacity. It is capacity released from the requirement to establish rank. You can be unusually skilled without being more valuable than other people. You can accept visibility without treating visibility as proof. You can lead without converting followers into evidence of your identity. You can leave when the role no longer serves the good it was meant to serve. Calling becomes lighter when it no longer has to prove that the called person is exceptional. It also becomes more demanding. There is less fantasy available to reward the work. Consider a second fictional composite. Elias repairs mobility equipment: wheelchairs, walkers, lifts, brakes, cushions, batteries, controls. He did not begin with a vision. He began because an older technician needed help, and Elias was good with electrical systems. The first months felt like any new job. Unfamiliar paths, repeated errors, labels he could not remember. Then a chair failed after a rushed repair. No one was injured, but the user missed an appointment and spent hours waiting for assistance. Elias expected anger. What he encountered was detail. The user explained what it means when a chair is treated as equipment rather than as part of a person's movement through the world. A small delay at the workshop can become a missed bus, a missed appointment, a lost shift, or dependence on someone who was not supposed to be needed that day. The conversation changed Elias's attention. He began documenting recurring failures. He asked users which problems technicians underestimated. He created a check that added 7 minutes to certain repairs. He taught the check to 2 colleagues. Years later, Elias sometimes describes the work as a calling, but the word arrived after the responsibility. It named a relationship he had learned to see. Popular stories often imagine calling as a voice that precedes competence. Sometimes it does. Sometimes calling is retrospective language for a pattern discovered through practice. You do work. The work teaches you what it affects. People correct your assumptions. Skill grows. Responsibility becomes more specific. Only then do you recognize that you have been returning to the same kind of need for years. This path is less cinematic because the meaning is not visible at the beginning. It accumulates. Calling research often focuses on careers because work is a major site of identity, contribution, and constraint. But human purpose is not contained entirely by occupation. Some of the most consequential responsibilities are not chosen through a dramatic sense of fit. A sibling becomes a caregiver because illness arrives. A neighbor begins organizing food deliveries because a storm closes the roads. A worker documents a safety problem because everyone else has learned to ignore it. A parent advocates for a child because the system cannot yet see what the child needs. These responsibilities may become meaningful. They may also remain exhausting, unfair, or unwanted. Calling language must not be used to make imposed burdens beautiful before justice has been considered. Telling someone they were chosen for hardship can silence their protest and protect the conditions creating the hardship. Meaning and injustice can coexist. A caregiver may love deeply and still need relief. A community organizer may find purpose and still deserve functioning institutions. A worker may protect others and still require legal, financial, or professional support. The discovery of meaning does not cancel another person's duty to help. Sometimes the responsible response to a calling is not greater personal heroism. It is building a system in which less heroism is required. Paid work may be meaningful without becoming a total calling. A calling may be expressed partly through family, community, craft, citizenship, study, caregiving, worship, or the protection of something vulnerable. Some people need a job that leaves enough life for the work they most value. This matters because a culture that tells everyone to monetize purpose can create a new form of disappointment. If the activity does not become a career, it appears unreal. If it does not scale, it appears small. If it does not build a personal brand, it appears invisible. But scale and significance are different variables. A system used by millions may contribute little to human flourishing. A repair completed for one person may alter an entire day. Research can examine satisfaction, performance, meaning, and persistence. It cannot create a universal unit for the worth of a life. What does your calling look like on a Tuesday? Not in the speech you would give after success, not in the biography written backward from recognition. On a Tuesday, what email must be answered honestly? What skill requires practice? What boundary protects tomorrow's work? What person needs to be consulted rather than rescued? What unglamorous maintenance keeps the promise real? Calling becomes livable when it can enter a calendar without occupying every hour. Ordinary structure is not the enemy of spiritual purpose. It may be one of the tests. Can the work respect sleep? Can it tolerate budgeting? Can it be documented so another person can continue it? Can it survive a season in which health, caregiving, or grief requires less output? Can responsibility be shared without making the originator feel erased? Can the person remain a person when the work is interrupted? A calling that requires constant crisis may be feeding on crisis. A calling that requires one irreplaceable hero may be poorly designed. A calling that becomes more trustworthy through shared knowledge, feedback, succession, and limits is beginning to look less like an identity claim and more like service. Elias eventually trains someone who is faster than he is. The younger technician improves the 7-minute check and reduces it to 4 without losing reliability. Elias feels two things: pride and threat. If the work can continue without him, what did his years mean? The answer does not arrive as a feeling. It is visible in the fact that the repair is now better. The purpose was never to make Elias necessary. It was to make movement more dependable. That is the difference between building a contribution and building a throne. Perhaps you are waiting for a calling to reveal the one role only you can fill. There may be work fitted to your history and ability in a distinctive way, but irreplaceability is a dangerous measure of meaning. Love often makes replacement possible. It teaches, it documents, it shares access, it prepares for absence. It wants the good to continue even when someone else receives the credit. A calling has weight because it gathers many things into one word: desire, duty, identity, hope, fear, ability, belonging. the needs of others, the expectations of a community. Sometimes the weight is clarifying. A person knows what to protect when options compete. Sometimes the weight becomes crushing because no human role can safely carry every one of these needs at once. The solution is not to abandon purpose, it is to distribute the weight. There is a form of calling rarely shown in origin stories, the calling that ends. Imagine a teacher who has spent 25 years in a classroom. For much of that time, teaching has felt like the central shape of her contribution. Then illness changes her stamina. The work she still loves begins taking more than her body can safely give. She faces a painful question. If this was a calling, does leaving mean she has failed it? The question contains an assumption. A true calling must remain permanent. But people change. Conditions change. Knowledge changes. Communities develop new needs. A role can be real without being eternal. The teacher may grieve, she may resist, she may discover another form of contribution, or she may not. The ending does not need an immediate replacement to become legitimate. Release is not always abandonment. Sometimes it is recognition that a responsibility has been completed, transferred, or made impossible by conditions no devotion can erase. The language of seasons can become a cliché, especially when used to avoid grief. But it protects one truth. Duration is not the only measure of authenticity. A promise can be kept and then completed. A role can be loved and then left. A person can remain faithful without remaining identical. The evidence considered in this film supports modest conclusions. Calling is studied through multiple definitions. Perceiving, searching for, and living a calling are distinct. Calling often travels with meaning and satisfaction, but it can also interact with sacrifice, work conditions, identity, exploitation, and burnout. Pro-social purpose may support persistence in some contexts. None of these findings verifies a divine assignment for an individual viewer. The research also cannot produce one formula for balance. Some responsibilities are seasonal, some emergencies require unusual effort. Some people have more freedom to set boundaries than others. Some work is performed inside economic conditions that make ideal choices unavailable. Advice that ignores power can turn boundaries into another privilege people are blamed for lacking. So discernment must remain concrete. What is being asked? By whom? For whose benefit? At whose cost? For how long? With what evidence? Under whose review? Here are 5 tests. They do not prove that a calling came from God. They help reveal whether the way it is being carried is becoming more truthful. First, the test of reality. Can the calling name an actual need without inventing enemies, secret signs, or guaranteed outcomes? Can it receive facts that complicate the story? Can it survive the possibility that one interpretation was wrong? Second, the test of service. Who becomes more capable, more free, safer, better informed, or less alone because the work exists? Are the people affected allowed to describe whether it helps? Third, the test of limits. Does the calling permit sleep, care, treatment, financial truth, consent, and the word no? Can urgency be reviewed? Can sacrifice end? Fourth, the test of community. Can trusted people question the plan? Is authority shared? Are correction and disagreement treated as information rather than betrayal? Fifth, the test of ordinariness. Can the calling be practiced when no dramatic confirmation arrives? Can it inhabit maintenance, learning, apology, administration, repetition, and a small sphere of responsibility? Nadia keeps the folded note. Years later, it contains several lines. Pay attention to what you are willing to serve. Do not confuse visibility with usefulness. Let other people correct the picture. Build a life that can continue if the plan changes. She eventually moves into adult education, but not through a single leap. Her first application is rejected. A later role pays less than expected and is not sustainable. She returns temporarily to administrative work while completing another credential. There is no moment when every prior event reveals its purpose. Some years remain difficult without becoming necessary chapters in a success story. The literacy program continues. The guide she helped rewrite is replaced by a better one. New volunteers never know her name. This does not make her invisible work secretly more important than visible work. It makes the work complete enough to be replaced. The phrase "chosen one" offers a powerful identity. It can tell a person that alienation has meaning, that suffering has not erased value, and that life may contain responsibility larger than immediate comfort. But the phrase can also isolate, inflate, and frighten. It can encourage a person to read ordinary disagreement as persecution, uncertainty as hidden knowledge, and exhaustion as proof of devotion. This film cannot tell you whether you are chosen. It can ask what the belief is producing: more honesty or more certainty without evidence? More service or more attention to status? More connection or more suspicion? More responsibility or a fantasy of exemption? More capacity to receive help or a conviction that no one else can understand? The fruit does not settle every theological question. It still matters. You do not need to solve the whole purpose of your life tonight. You may need to keep one promise, learn one skill, tell one truth, repair one harm, ask one person what they actually need, leave one unsafe demand. Rest before exhaustion begins speaking as revelation. Let one cherished plan become revisable. The next responsible action may not reveal the entire calling. It may make the calling safe enough to carry. And if no action is clear, uncertainty does not need to be filled with a grand interpretation. A period of searching can contain study, counsel, experiments, paid work, recovery, and attention to existing obligations. Not knowing is not evidence that a person has missed a secret deadline. A trustworthy purpose does not need panic to keep it alive. It can wait for evidence. It can become more precise. It can release language that no longer fits. It can admit that a sincere beginning led to the wrong plan. It can honor what was learned without pretending every detour was designed. The calling may become clearer. It may become smaller. It may become shared. It may become a question carried honestly rather than an identity defended at any cost. Return to the room before dawn. The folded note remains on the desk. The lamp is still small. It does not illuminate the entire road. That was never its function. It gives enough light to see what is within reach. A name that needs to be remembered. A tool that needs to be cleaned. A question that needs to be asked. A boundary that needs to be kept. A person who should not have to carry the work alone. Perhaps calling is not first the announcement that your life will become extraordinary. Perhaps it is the moment responsibility becomes difficult to ignore. And perhaps maturity begins when you can answer that responsibility without needing it to prove that you are more chosen than anyone else.